Namaste and welcome. This is me, Shrutika Raut from Nepal Live Today. International Youth Day is marked every year on August 12th, and this day reminds us to conserve and preserve and cherish the youth energy. This day also reminds us that youth make the future as they are the agents of change. Coinciding with this day, Nepal Live Today has started a Yuwa Kura talk series. This year, the theme of International Youth Day is intergenerational solidarity, which focuses on strengthening the relationship between the older and the younger generations. In this episode of the series, we have with us Mr. Bharat Shrestha, who is the head of programs at People in Need. Right now, his focuses are on education, disaster management, climate change, strengthening marginalizing communities, and young people, as well as other humanitarian works. Bharatji, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
So how have you been? How has life been treating you?
Life's great. After the COVID pandemic, we are getting back to the usual business, so it feels great, yeah. And looking forward to the discussion today.
Well, that's
Thank
really
you.
great to hear. So moving on to the topical conversation of today, since we are all celebrating International Youth Day, what would you say is the importance of commemorating such a day and highlighting youth issues?
I mean, young people, they are the center of energy, I would say, and also a change of agent in a society if we are looking for a very sustainable development of the country and the community as a whole. So since if we look at the demography, let's say more than 1/3 of the population globally and in Nepal belongs to that age category which we define as young people. So it is important to understand their capacity, provide them the opportunity, and also for the people, government, community and the stakeholders to understand how important it is for the young people to be mobilized and also to give them the space so that they can showcase their creativity and their own skill of sets. So having said that, it is important to celebrate because this is the day in a year where all the young people, stakeholders focuses on youth energy. So this is why it is important for all the stakeholders to know on this very day and all the other day throughout the year to engage young people, to know their potential and to engage them in a national reconstruction and nation peace building. So I think it is very much important to celebrate this day, not just today I would say, but in general throughout the year.
So you have been engaged in the humanitarian sector for a very long time now. What or how have the youth been playing a role in the humanitarian sector?
I was a social youth activist myself, almost a decade ago. So I have known a lot of facets around how youth need to be engaged, what are the gaps and challenges that is prevalent in our structure and society. So like I said at the beginning, the young people are the pool of energy. They have the skills, they have the capacity, and they have all the things that is required in terms of humanitarian response, so if we look at, let's say, the humanitarian principles, it's talk about the volunteerism, it talks about universal unity and universality. So with that, I think young people bring a fresh energy in terms of volunteerism and a kind of unity as well. So in all the humanitarian response work, I believe that they need to be engaged from emergency preparedness actions to the response through the early recovery until the society is resilient and have a long-term resilient plan for the country. So they belong to the community. They can be the first-hand responder in a humanitarian responses. So they need to be considered and engaged in all humanitarian work, I would say.
Nowadays, we can see a lot of young activists who are working in the sectors of disaster management and other humanitarian sectors. Has the government been supportive and acknowledging their presence in these sectors, or has their role more often than not, gone neglected?
I don't want to be too critical considering government's government's own initiative to provide space for the young people, but we have been working with government at all levels, national level and sub-national levels, from the federal structure to the local municipality level. So far our engagement with them has been very collaborative in a partnership. So for all the design and for all the engagement model that we have, like the government of Nepal, including the local government especially, have been very open, and at times like they would rather suggest, how do we make our humanitarian work and other responses more inclusive in terms of not just young people but also working with other marginalized community, let's say the elderly people with disability, and all the other intersectionality that we have in a society. So we work with the government, we discuss them, we plan with them, and we prepare how we engage all these diverse intersectional people within our program. So for that matter, I'm very thankful that the government are very cooperative and always provides their suggestions and avenues for us to work together with all these different foray of stakeholders in the community, including the young people themselves. In fact, when people in need came to Nepal right after the earthquake back in 2015, we heavily worked with the young people, especially in the first hand responding in all the major earthquake affected districts across Nepal. So it was pretty intense, but it was through their engagement and through their support we managed to achieve a lot in a short duration of time. In fact, I think it makes sense for me to highlight that even our team in people in need are mostly, I would say, more than 75% of the staff that we have are young people from all different parts of the country, so which is very much interesting, and that also support our principle of working together with the young people.
Thank you for that. It was very encouraging to hear that the government as well as the young people are very actively engaged in this sector. So talking about the Youth Vision 2025, it is approaching very near. It's 2022 right now already. And so what is People in Need doing in order to accomplish the 5 pillars of development?
Interestingly, it was really great of the government of Nepal to have that youth vision in place at in the first place, I would say, since we are approaching near, like we are like 3 years down the lane to reach 2025, but the whole Youth Vision 2025 has been very ambitious, but in a way it directs development actors like ours, like how do we focus our resources, how do we focus our own strategic direction to support the community and the government in reaching the youth vision that was developed almost 7-8 years ago. So in our work, since there are in a Youth Vision 2025, there are like 5 pillars. So of the 5 pillars, we have been working directly and indirectly contributing to almost all the pillars, but most specifically the pillars 1 to 4, I would say. Firstly, around the quality and technical education, that we have been doing a lot of work, especially in our Madhya province, where the girls literacy is so challenging. So we work with out of school girls under that pillar and also support them with technical skills. So we support pillar 1 on that part, and then on a second pillar that talks about employment, that talks about entrepreneurship, and also the skill sets developing for the young people. So again, like I said at the beginning, like young people has been a core of our own intervention when we design, when we plan, and when we actually go to the field doing all the engagement with the diverse stakeholders. But then coming back to the humanitarian action, for all the responses that we have did in the past, and for all the emergency preparedness work, the resilience work that we are doing with the government, the local government and local stakeholders, your young people, we work with them. They are the part of the intervention. They support us. We have a cash for work modality where they work with us. They provide their skills, they provide their capacity to rebuild the community, and they become a part of the program itself. And not just that, we believe in local employment, we believe in capacitating local human resources, mostly the young people. So they are a part of our intervention, I would say. Yeah. So in all humanitarian responses, like I said, like we create jobs, we provide opportunity to build their capacity in terms of their technical and vocational skills, not just in responding to the emergency, but in general development work, I would say. So that is pillar 2, and under pillar 3, which says mostly around health, mental health, and then at the same time sexual reproductive health, HIV and AIDS, STIs, a lot of things are there, and also the social security part. So in all our programs, again, the adolescent girls and then the boys are the focus of our intervention, because they are at higher risk of during the disaster time, in terms of protection, in terms of gender-based violence, in terms of human trafficking, and so many other societal issues that we face in every emergency. So we have a dedicated team, we have a dedicated approach, I would say, to engage and support young people during the time of disaster, so that their health, mental health, their sexual reproductive health are not compromised even during the disaster time. And separately, on a social security part, we work with the government, and it's great that a lot of local initiatives and the national initiatives are there to support marginalized groups. So we facilitate the whole process for the young people to access those services. For instance, in Madhesh, where we operate, we support all these girls, like who have hardly been out of their community. They do not have a legal documentations, which is a most prerequisite document to access any services, I would say, either that be, like opening a bank account, taking a loan, if you want to go abroad, or for anything, the legal documents are required. So we facilitate the process to have these girls access to make these vital documents, like not just citizenship, but also marriage certificate, birth certificates, migration certificates, all of that we support with that. And during the time of disaster, like when the government and the development partner allocate certain resources to rebuild the nation and the community. For example, after the earthquake, I remember like government allocated several grants for reconstruction, relocation of the communities to the safe areas. But unfortunately, many of the community members, they did not have access to those services or the information to the list. So we facilitated the whole process in all the 14 earthquake affected districts, so that more than 30,000 plus households had access to the government grants in terms of reconstruction. So we managed to unlock more than 40 million pound of support to the local community.
As an international non-governmental organization, what can people in need and other organizations similar to it do in order to ensure that legislature and bills are passed that ensure youth participation and youth development?
Like I said at the beginning, like how the whole demography is shifting, and a big chunk of groups belongs to the young people now. So not just development partners, but I would say for all the intervention that we do for a societal development, resilient societal development, peace building work, I think young people should be a core. They should be a strong change of agent in all the intervention, from planning, from designing, from monitoring, or even from how the whole thing work out eventually. So when it comes to the government, and when it comes to advocating with the government at all tiers, it takes a lot of efforts, it takes a lot of consultative workout to propose what we usually do with the government. So for that to happen, we need to have a holistic voices of the young people being heard, so that whatever we draft to propose to the government to advocate in terms of policy advocacy, all that need to be reflected, and it has to come from a local level, I would say. From like we have a really great youth network in all the communities, I would say, in all our palikas, in all our local level structures. The youth groups are there as a club, as a loose network, as a forum, either that be the sports club or education club or a holistic development club. They exist there. So I think it is important for us to consult them, engage them, and to understand the current gaps, at the same time their own capacity, how they can work it out together with the development partners like us and also with the government. So yeah.
Well, that's great. So, as you mentioned before, People in Need has started working in Nepal since the 2015 earthquake. Since then, what issues has the organization observed when it comes to the youth, especially in rural areas of Nepal?
Yeah, like we came as a first-hand humanitarian responders to the earthquake crisis back in 2015. But since then, we have seen a lot of disasters in Nepal, from landslide, flash flooding in the hills, mountains, to the massive flooding in the south, Tarai Belt, and we have been very active to work with the government and other stakeholders to respond to that crisis. And well, that is the disaster and emergency situation. But coming back to your question on the pressing issues of young people in rural areas, I would again say, how traditional we have been so far in terms of our education, and like it's hard for the young people to be competitive in a growing global market in an education system that we have, the traditional education system that we have. And it was clearly out there during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Because the school were short, there was every one of us were in dilemma what to do next and how do we ensure the continuity of education. So that also showcased how fragile our whole structure and our system is, and that has hampered the learning opportunity and the ability of the students in a very difficult way. So I think that is why there has been a lot of dissatisfaction, or there has been a lot of demotivation on the side of young people, not just in rural areas, I would say, but also in the urban areas. Like how our education system need to catch up with the global growing technology based approaches. So the gaps are there, because of which a lot of young people are migrating from rural areas to the urban areas like Kathmandu, and from every part of the country to all the different countries. I was reading one article where it says that more than 500,000 young people go abroad, not to study but only for employment opportunity. That showcase, they highlight how the unemployment is a huge issue among young people, how they plan to like they do not see any opportunity within the country, so they decide to go abroad. And same is the case for higher studies. Many of our young people like they plan to go abroad once they complete their school level or plus 2. That has been a great issue. That brings the issue of brain drain, like how the country is losing the biggest because human resources that they could build on, actually. So I think these are the issue. But at the same time, the other issue are around our own stereotypical gender norms, stereotypical social norms. How we still practice child marriages, how gender-based violence is still considered a norm, a natural norm, and like all these things, our belief system. I think that all of these need to be challenged and updated as per current scenario, because today's young people have access to a lot of information through social media, through technology, right? So they know what is happening elsewhere, and they feel suffocated where they live in, either that is Kathmandu or that it in Rautahad or Janakpur or elsewhere. That's why they need to grow, they need to have that opportunity and then that space to grow as an individual and showcase their potential. I think that is the biggest issue, I would say.
So thank you for your insight. With that, we've come towards the end of this show, and this is going to be my last question to you. So, People in Need has the word "in need" within its title. So what exactly do the youth of Nepal need?
That's a very tricky question, given the need is huge, right? I mean, it can come in so many forms, and it can come in so many, it can go in a different directions. So, you know, there is a saying like need is a necessity. Need, in short, is a mother of invention and creation, right? So when people are in need, let's say, like, they come up with all the creative ideas and all the innovative approaches, like I gave you the example of COVID-19 pandemic, the education disruption and all of that, but we managed to get through that because we came up with other alternative innovative approaches. So young people in Nepal, not just in Nepal, I guess, but globally as well, needs a lot of space. They need opportunities. They need space where they can grow. They need quality education that is marketable in a global context. They need more employment-based technical and vocational skills where they can still live with their family in their community, so that they don't have to go abroad either to study or for a regular work purpose, so that is the real need of the young people for now, because we have, like, in a new federal structure now, there is a lot of scope, there is a lot of opportunity that the local government could do, actually, like when they do the whole planning, the red book, the social audit, all the things that they do at the community level, how they could actually utilize the potential of young people, which apparently is not happening, unfortunately. But like I said, there is a lot of scope and opportunity to bring together with the mobilization of young people, so that ultimately we could have a more resilient and more sustainable society, where the demography is not hampered due to the migration, where every people can enjoy their own livelihood and being with their family and friends.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful thoughts, and thank you for sitting down with us and having this conversation. With that, we have come to an end to today's episode of Yuwa Kura. We will be having other further personalities on other episodes who will be giving their insights into the topic of today's conversation, which is intergenerational solidarity and International Youth Day. Till then, stay tuned with us. I'm Shrutika Raut from Nepal Live Today.